Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we discuss the story of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you all are well and keeping safe. Returning to the podcast today, we have Surya Raju, who blogs at travelrope.com. Surya was our very first guest on the podcast when we started 5 years ago. Let's hop onto the episode and find out where Surya is taking us this time.
So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome back Surya Raju, an avid traveler, a blogger, and now also podcast host with Travel Rope. You inspire me. Surya, thank you so much for coming back to the Musafir Stories. So delighted to have you.
Hello, Seth. Very, very glad to meet you again. And I'm so excited to be talking to Musafir Stories again. It's been a long while. I don't know why you took so long to, talk to me again.
Right? Yeah, for our listeners who are wondering or listening to this for the first time, Surya has been one of our very first episodes. If you go back all the way down the playlist, you'll find Surya Raju episode 2, probably after the intro episode, discussing Sikkim with us. And we are so grateful to Surya actually for agreeing to talk to us and believing in us back in the day. This is back in 2016 when we did the recording, and just feels like yesterday, but chatting with you again, it's been it feels so great and just brings back all those memories of the early days and the bloopers and the blunders we used to do back in the day while recording.
No, always lovely to talk to you and Faiza, I must say, and I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled that you decided that, maybe it's time that, we bring it back and, maybe discuss about something else. So totally excited.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to chatting more and seeing where you're taking us to. But before that, Surya, why don't you also tell our guests, because Surya has also recently turned a podcaster herself, right? So I'd like to take a little bit of credit for, I don't know, maybe it was Surya's first podcast interview back in the day as well. So I'll take a little bit of credit for now Surya having started her own podcast. But tell us a little bit more about You Inspire Me. I think this also used to be a section in your blog, at least, right?
Exactly. So I used to do this text-based interviews, right? I mean, I used to reach out to people, even though I would have like a conversation or do an interview with them, but then I would put it in the form of a text and then, put it on my blog, Travel Rope. But then I thought, okay, why not try the podcast route and maybe I'll learn something out of it. It's just that interest of, just knowing what really motivates people, what are their stories, what is it that inspires them the most, right? I mean, these are the kind of people who've been doing some exceptional and incredible work, right? Be it in any walk of life. So I think that's where it all started. And, thankfully I finished like season 1 with 10 episodes, like great set of guests. So I'm very happy with the way it turned out for season 1. So I will kickstart season 2 very soon, I should say. Just prepping for it. So very excited, to showcase the next set of guests on season 2.
Yeah, definitely. And we will make sure to link the podcast as well in our show notes so listeners can check out the podcast. Definitely go and give it a try. I would say some great interviews. I started off with somebody I've already followed the work of, Padma Priya, right, from Suno India. And it was a brilliant interview. And there's several other interviews like that of very inspiring personalities. And obviously, Surya does a great job in trying to understand the story, the background of the individual, as well as bring out what takeaways one can take and just get inspired, right? It's as simple as that. So thank you so much, Surya, for sharing that. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes so listeners can try out the podcast too, and eagerly looking forward for season 2 as well.
Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, but today, Surya, we have kind of snatched you away a little bit away from your own podcast to come be a guest here, sit back in the guest seat from seat of an interviewer from the host seat to try and ask you where you're taking us to today. Back, I think, back in 2016 when we spoke, you took us to the mountains with Sikkim and gave us a
Right.
beautiful insight into the wonderful place that Sikkim is. But
Yes.
where are you taking us to today?
So it's going to be back to the mountains, as
Okay.
always is the case with me, either mountains or jungle. Right, so I think that's the order that you will have with me, either mountains or jungle. So today again, I'm going to take you all back to mountains. It's going to be a trek experience.
Okay.
My very first trek. I had never done this before, and I thought, okay, why not try it? Because as always, I was thinking, okay, well, it's December. Where do I head? I need to be in like some snow-capped mountain somewhere, see snow somewhere, right? Just be in such a kind of a place, cut out from everything. So it's going to be Kedarkantha Trek experience.
Okay, wonderful. Really looking forward to that. And yes, one of the very, very popular winter treks in India, the Kedarkantha Trek.
Yes.
And just so listeners don't confuse this is not Kedarnath. I think the first thing goes across everybody's mind is this Kedarnath. No, it is not Kedarnath, but I can promise you this is going to be equally as exciting. And like I said, one of the very, very popular winter treks in India. Now, just in terms of the level of difficulty of this trek, how would you rate that, Surya, especially
Yeah.
given that you're saying that this was also one of your first treks?
Exactly. So no matter like who you reach out to, right? Which trekking company? I mean, at least I preferred that. I go with the trekking company because, first of all, we had like no prior experience to having done such elaborate treks, right? Because we're talking about like 5 to 6 day trek. These are not like trails that you can go and do, not like a hike as
Right.
such, which you could sort of do it on your own. So I wanted to make sure that like we're safe and we're doing the right thing, all of those precautions in place, right? So we did go with like a trekking company to, help us take through the entire trek, guide us properly, and make sure that we are taking care of our medical health, the checkups, and everything. That all those things need to be in place, right? So they will all put it out as an easy to moderate trek, no matter which trekking company website that you will take a look at, or even you contact them. But the thing is, you at least need to have at least 1 or 1.5 month of physical fitness prep, I would say, because Kedarkantha Trek, it's basically, of course, in Uttarakhand, and it falls under Govind Wildlife Sanctuary, right? So that's where you will actually go and start trekking, and you will reach the summit, right? So from the very first day itself, it's going to be a very steep ascent, right? So even though you end up trekking for possibly like 3 to 4 hours on the very first day, or max to max 5, but it's going to be a very steep ascent. And if you decide to carry your bags with you, then you better be prepared for it, right? Because you will have like some basic necessities, like the minimum clothing that you need to carry, couple of water bottles that you will carry, some food items that you will carry, right? So even though you feel it's like 2 to 3 kilos in your bag, but then with your walking, with the climb and everything, it's just going to be very strenuous. So even though it says easy to moderate, I would still say that you really, really have to have some kind of fitness level, right? Otherwise, it's not going to be easy. We did see a lot of people struggle like anything,
Yeah.
especially on the first day. Yeah, so I think that's something to take care of.
Yeah, definitely that isn't like a walk in the park that you can just show up and
No.
go on it. Yeah, definitely needs some preparation and prepping your body as well, like in the form of starting workouts and probably be
Exactly.
ready for it at least a month and a half in advance, like Surya is mentioning. And in terms of the company itself that you traveled with, that you did the trek with, how was the support and like what kind of assistance do you get? Do you still have to carry all of your luggage yourself, or are there porters traveling with you who help out?
Yeah.
Is there an option for that at all, or how is it?
Right. So what happens is either you can carry the luggage with you, or whatever the backpack, like one backpack, right? That's the maximum that you can really carry, right? And like I said, keep it as lightweight as it can get. Just the very important stuff needs to be there. But otherwise, the other option that takes place over there is there are a lot of mules. so which actually carry the backpacks for you, right? So that's one thing which I always sort of debate whether it's the right thing to do or not. Because whenever I do see all of these animals again, it's just that kind of a
Sure.
decision that you need to make, right? Whether that's a thing for you or whether you prefer carrying the backpacks on your own. But then the way it functions over here, at least, is that you do have like a lot of mules, and that's the kind of photos that you get, right? Like people
Okay.
who do manage the mules to carry the backpacks from one base camp to another base camp, right? So
Okay.
that's the way it works.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Just in terms of the elevation of the trek, or how much of an ascent you do, can you share a little bit of
Yeah,
background
yeah,
on that too?
absolutely. So the summit is actually at 12,500 feet, right? And the duration of the entire trek is about like 5 to 6 days. And I'm actually counting the day when we start from Dehradun as well, right?
Okay.
So usually what happens is people first land in Dehradun, and from Dehradun, you have to go to a village called as Sankri. So Sankri is about, almost about like 200 kilometers from Dehradun. And if you are going with any trek, who organizes treks and stuff like that, so you could do that, and they will give you like a time for a pickup, and that's usually in the morning, right? Because the
Okay.
journey is about like 9 to 10 hours, so it's going to be like a very early morning start, maybe around like 6 a.m. or something like that. But then, if you are trying to travel on your own, there are a couple of buses that fly from Dehradun to Sankri, but again, that's again going to be very early in the morning. Think of it like 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., anytime between that. And there are very limited number of buses that actually go from Dehradun to Sankri. So you have to be sort of careful about what time the bus is going to leave and make sure that you don't miss the bus, right? That apart, you can also choose to go in taxis from Dehradun, right? So that's also another option that you could do. But again, like I said, I felt that going with a trek organizing company, I felt that that was more convenient because they sort of take care of everything for you, right from
Yeah.
arranging for this transport and bringing you back to Dehradun. So it's sort of taken care by them, and you don't really have to worry about these things.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing this or a beginner, right? A first-time
Yeah,
trekker,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
better that you don't have to worry about these things in addition to doing the trek as
Yeah.
well. So certainly something to consider.
And at least you know like what it takes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
my own thing was that first figure out like what does it really take to do all of it, right? And then
Yeah.
maybe with the next time around, then you could sort of do it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, always, obviously, with experience and everything, you could always start doing it by yourself. But
Yeah,
doing with a group always has its own, a lot of pros. Definitely, it has some cons as well, but a lot of
exactly.
benefits too, right? You're working with a group, so it's easy to keep up, keep motivated, and obviously interact with a lot of people from different backgrounds you haven't met previously. And certainly, the expertise of like a trek leader with you, right? They'll be able to guide you. So certainly for beginners, it's I think great advice of doing it with a tour company or a trekking company, and there's several of them out there. You just have to look. But yeah, great that you have all of this sorted out. And just in terms of any sort of requirement for, is there any sort of requirement for passes or anything like that, Surya?
So
To
yeah, you have to have a pass because again, like
okay,
I said, Kedarkantha Trek, it is actually within this Govind Wildlife Sanctuary, right? So
right,
you do need to have those permits in place. And every time you're going with the group, there are like certain number of people that are allowed in a batch as well. So
right,
all of that would be taken care of because again, you don't want to crowd too many people up there, right? Like as in when you reach each of the base camp, there is a certain limit to how many people can be there and all of those things, right? So there surely is like a permit and everything that you have to take, the permissions that will have to be taken before you begin the trek itself.
yep, wonderful. And again, one of the other benefits working with the trekking group is, I think in most cases they do take care of all of this, right? All you have to do is provide your ID, I guess, right?
Correct, correct. They'll take care of everything. So they will consider like how much of a fee that you have to pay for it, and whatever ID proofs that you have to submit. So all of that would be taken care of.
Yeah, cool. I think in terms of context setting and background, you've given us a lot of good information for anybody to prepare for the trek. Now, eagerly looking forward to jumping into the trek itself. But just before that, wanted to add a couple of tidbits of trivia that I found about the trek too. Kedarkantha means the throat of Lord Shiva. I think that's what the name stands for, and it's also has several folklore and stories related to this, primarily around Lord Shiva and the Pandavas, right? It's
Yes.
around that, and it's believed that I think Shiva took the form of a bull when he met the Pandavas en route their journey towards heaven, and the throat of Lord Shiva. It's associated to here this part and several other parts of his, like his arm and things like that, his stomach and other places, other holy places in and around Uttarakhand. So overall, Uttarakhand, like it's also known as the Dev Bhumi, right? So a lot of such religious stories associated to the place too, especially with Lord Shiva. So anybody wanting to look that up, there's certainly that aspect of it too. It just makes the overall experience interesting, right? There is a name to the place, why is the name, etc. Learning about all of those things. It just adds to the entire experience of doing the trek. That's what I feel. But yeah, certainly some great folklore there to catch up on as well. Now, in terms of your experience starting off, right? You mentioned you started off from Dehradun. Can you talk us through the experience and maybe just start with day one, where how you would begin day one and the experience leading up to the trek? Surya?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, like I was saying, so we actually, landed in Dehradun, right? I mean, we thought that, okay, let's take like 1 day break in Dehradun. And usually that's what happens, right? I mean, for people like traveling from remote places, like, because I'm from south of India, right? So for me, getting like, be it like a flight or whatever other means of transport, then you literally reach sometime during the middle of the day or maybe like max to max by evening. So what usually happens is like you have to stay like 1 day in Dehradun, right? Like you need to plan for your accommodation on day one that you land in Dehradun. So again, Dehradun is a beautiful, beautiful place. Nice things to eat as well over there. So even if you can just manage to get a couple of hours in Dehradun, I would say just go ahead and explore. So that's what happened with us as well, where we landed there. We did explore a little bit of, the markets and, some places to eat. All of that happened. And the next day, we started very early in the morning. I think it was around like 6 or max to max, I think it was 6:30 when we all started traveling from Dehradun all the way up to Sankri. So Sankri is a place, or you can call it as a base camp for a whole lot of treks, right? So Kedarkantha Trek is just one of them. You do have like other treks like Harki Dun, Rupin Pass Trek. All of these are like very popular treks, very beautiful treks, right? So all of
Sure.
their base camp is actually from Sankri. Like that's the place where they actually start their trek from, right? So you go there again in Sankri. It's a very small village, very tiny, very cute, and no matter which place you see, it's absolutely picturesque, right? So everything is like, they say postcard perfect. It's sort of that kind of a village. So so the very next day when you reach, you'll have to stay back at Chankri, because like I said, it takes about 9 to 10 hours and you're sort of tired, and by the time you reach, it's almost like 4:30 or 5 in the evening. And obviously because it's very hilly area and everything, so it just becomes dark very soon, right? And you do have timing as to when you can enter and all of it, right? So day two again goes in just staying back in Sankri itself. Then the next
Okay.
day is when your trek starts, right? And I mean, the entire Kedarkantha trek is, I think, almost about 20 kilometers. The entire
Okay.
thing, I'm saying. But then you have to consider acclimatization, make sure that your oxygen levels are fine, all that, right? So that's the reason why, even if you do like 5 kilometers per day, they tell that you have to stay in one base camp for the rest of the day, right? So that's what happens here as well. So from Shankri, again, yeah, like I said, so you start the trek. And day one is almost about 5 kilometers, if I remember correctly. And the first base camp that you will hit is Juda ka Talab.
Okay.
Now, before you reach Juda ka Talab, it's actually a pond. That's why Talab, right? So it's a
Mm-hmm.
pond or a lake kind of a thing. So uh, you before you even go there, right? The very first day over here is like very steep ascent, and I think after like 30 minutes only, you will feel like, oh my god, my legs are giving up. I want to like go have Maggie or tea here and there.
Right.
Like there are many places where you do get stuff to eat, right? Like Maggie or omelette or chai, right?
Yeah.
So you do have those, choto choto, shops that I can call, so that people can just go and eat something, right? Like again, it's a beautiful feeling. I think just go there and you're just in the mountains, and please know that you will not get any connectivity. I don't know if things have changed now, but 2 to 3 years back there was no connectivity at all. Like cell phone coverage is like zero.
Which is a good
So
thing, I would argue, but
totally,
yeah, carry
totally,
on.
totally. I really
Yeah.
hope that's the case, but yeah, I don't know like to what extent things might have changed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so every few kilometers, you have like one shop. And that's not too many, also, right? I mean, that's
Right.
also one thing that I want to say and appreciate, that you don't have too many of these things, because again, we do see people just littering in the place and everything. So people do take care that that doesn't happen. And the other good thing that I noticed during our trek period was that even if there was a litter somewhere, I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone made an effort to just pick it up and come and dispose it correctly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
people, I mean, I felt really happy to see that people are so conscious about it, and it was a good thing. So you do have in some of the places such kind of shops, right?
Yeah.
The very first day it was mostly like seeing all these deodar trees, right? Beautiful trees and like such tall trees, and you just feel you're in some different world altogether, right? I mean, just that greenery surrounding you and such tall trees surrounding you. That's what you actually get to see in the very first few hours, right? I mean, you still don't get to see snow in the very beginning, but you know that you've entered like some kind of a forest range. You know that this place is like so beautiful that it's just your group, right? I mean, they also make sure that there are not too many people also. So that's another thing that you immediately get to notice. As and when you start moving upwards, you actually get Judaka Talab, which is around like 9,000 or 9,100 feet, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around that. So, as and when you reach Judaka Talab, especially if you're doing like a winter trek, you will start seeing that there's absolutely like snow everywhere. Like there are trees, there are these deodar trees surrounding, but also you see like a lot of snow around. And then this Judaka Talab is like completely frozen. At least in December when we went, I think there was a very little portion of it that was still not frozen, but otherwise you could not even see the water being there. It's like a winter wonderland, right? I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I mean, I think especially when you're walking and you're trekking, you don't really feel how cold it is. But the minute you stop walking and the minute you stop, doing all of the physical activity, that's when I think the cold starts hitting you.
Yeah. It's already sub-zero temperatures at this point, or
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
has it been?
It
Yeah.
it does get to that. At least when we reached there, I think it was already sometime in the afternoon, I guess. Uh, you can think of it like maybe 2 to 3 degrees. But then, as soon as it hits evening, right? Because there's literally nothing else you're doing, right? I mean, there's no network coverage. You
Yeah.
literally can't carry anything else because your batteries and everything will just drain out because it's so damn cold out there, right?
Yeah.
So you have your trek group with you, so you can just play whatever games that you can, like literally without using anything.
Right.
Just have like a good conversation with people. And the food, oh my god, this is something that I have to tell. I mean, the at least the group that I went out with, like what amazing food. I mean, it was like basic food itself. Like you have like dal, chawal, and some kind of a sweet and everything. But I have to tell the amount of effort they put in to make those things at that. elevation,
Yeah.
and to make it that delicious also, right? So I think that was like something that I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, it's like ghar ka khana type feeling, and you are in like this winter wonderland. Nice group of people. I mean, that's also like, just being lucky that,
Yeah.
everybody who's there in the group is just so nice and kind. So I think that was also an added advantage for me. So that's what happened in Juda ka Talab, that, first day, I think the temperatures dropped up to like -4 or -5. It was already that much on the very first day, right? And also because we're talking about trek, you will just get like a basic tent. Like everybody will get like a basic tent, and usually it's like either one or two people sleeping in the tent, right?
Okay.
So you will just have like a sleeping bag, nothing other than that. So
Okay.
it's just your what do I say, the warm clothing that you're carrying, your thermals and everything, which you're already wearing. And you obviously are not taking baths for the next 5 days or something.
Yeah.
Right? So you are basically in the clothes that you're carrying. And if you want to change, you can just change to another pair that you've carried. Because
Right.
beyond that, the weight sort of increases, right? So
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
it works.
And you're probably adding more layers of clothes as you kind of progress through the trek as well. Like you said, at the beginning, it's probably not as cold, but as you go into elevations, plus depending on the time of the day as well, like late evenings, it starts to drop significantly. So just make sure you're carrying enough warm clothing along with the appropriate gear and sleeping bags and stuff like that. I'm sure like the trekking company kind of gives you some advice as to things to
Yeah,
carry
yeah,
so that you're not
absolutely.
carrying too much or too little. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So the sleeping bags are usually provided. I mean, if you're going with some kind of a company, right? So they provide the sleeping bag, but then the rest of the stuff that you have to wear, right? The thermals, be it the thermals, or making sure that your head and your ears are covered, right? And
Yeah.
as we go further up, you are supposed to cover your face and your nose as well, because it's that cold, and the kind of cold breeze that can also hit you, right? So
Yeah.
you just have to be a little cognizant about all of those things too. And yeah, and day one, I forgot to mention like a very important guest was with us. His name was Shera, the very famous like mountain dogs that everybody must have told
Oh.
you. If there are like any treks, then you know that there
Yeah.
are some dogs who will accompany you, right? So in our group, we had this beautiful mountain dog, and he literally looked like a lion. So I think all of us ended up calling him Shera. So Shera was with us right from Sankri all the
Yeah.
way till I think we got back to Sankri. So he came with us, like the entire trek he did, he completed. He did the summit also with us, huh, by the way. So
That's great.
yeah. So that's another thing which I absolutely love about mountains, that dogs, who are just there with you like throughout the journey. So yeah, so Shera was there with us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely good company to have. And I know Surya from our previous conversation, I definitely remember Surya really
yeah,
appreciates dogs as well. So I'm
yes,
sure you enjoyed the company of Shera on the trek.
totally.
And just the overall the scenery and the views you go through as well, right? I mean, Kedarkantha is also very popular for like having a combination of not just like you're saying the trees, right? The pines, the deodars, the oaks, all of these long, beautiful looking trees. But along with them, it also has some beautiful clearings, right? Places where it's
Absolutely.
a little more flat and almost like a meadow-like feeling. Plus, Juda ka Talab obviously kind of enhances that even more with this high altitude or alpine lake, if you can call it that. And also one interesting thing I looked up was Juda ka Talab apparently. There's a couple of stories related to this. One is obviously that, again, related to Lord Shiva, that he was here to meditate, and when he wanted water, he just plucked a hair from his bun, right? The bun of hair
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has tied, and Juda, I think in Hindi it's also referred to as Juda, and he dropped it, and that's where the lake appeared. So that's one backstory, and the other one is also that it's believed that the lake is interconnected, almost like lakes and streams form a network beneath, and that also kind of, that Juda or that connectedness comes from that. Either way, I think it has some backstory as to how the name goes, and it's good to find that out as well. But it's a beautiful lake, like you said, right? And frozen,
It is.
especially if you're going at this time, frozen or semi-frozen almost. So something to definitely enjoy, and especially for us, right, coming from the plains or
Yes.
low-lying areas, things like this, nowadays getting a lake in itself is a great achievement, but over that frozen lake, I think for a lot of us it'll be a first time. But just make sure to not litter, right? One important thing that you called out as well, and obviously people are taking care of this, but it doesn't hurt, and stressing on the fact that please do not litter, because we have seen that a lot of such beautiful treks, just because of the over commercialization and use, they just go into a state of almost disrepair, you can say, with so much littering that we've seen instances where they've been shut down also, right? These treks have been closed. So definitely try and avoid littering and leave the place in better condition, or at least the same condition that you find in, right? So one important thing, and thanks for calling that out as well, Surya.
Yeah, I think so. I think, Juda ka Talab, like you just have to see the pictures as well. Like I feel that, it's some other world. You just feel that
Yeah,
it's some other world, especially if you're like going there in like winters, right? So
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful place. And I think that it's one of those places which I can confidently say that I had never seen anything like that. I
Hmm.
would say second day was considerably easy than the first or the third day for me, right? Because you still
Okay,
had like a lot of flat places that you had to get to.
okay.
But then there were also, because now the snow has started, right? You also had a lot of places that were like slippery, especially if you have like snow on a stone. You've got to be like very, very
Right,
careful. Otherwise, you're going to just slip
sure.
and fall down, right? But yeah, be sure to like fall in like one or two places. That's definitely going to happen, no matter like how careful you are and how much time you take to cross from one place to another. But it will happen, right? I mean, it's anything but obvious. So yeah, but you just have to be a little more careful about these things, right? Wherever there is like some deep snow, it's much easier to go in those places rather than where you find like stone and there is a little bit of snow there, because then it just gets too slippery. Yeah, so day two, I mean, at least in terms of like after Judakatala, next
Hmm.
day was Kedarkantha base camp itself, right? So
Okay,
Kedarkantha base camp is around like 11,200 feet, and our summit is at like 12,500 feet. So
right.
this on the next day we are at 11,200 feet, right? And like I was saying, that this happens because you have to get acclimatized, right? And every single
Hmm.
day, your oxygen levels are checked, right? Because a lot of people have mountain sickness as well, and they're not able to like really get to like high elevation in a short period of time, and you're not
Sure.
supposed to do that as well. So this is to ensure that you are ascending in a limited period, or in a limited manner, right? You're not
Yeah.
really pushing yourself too hard on it. So that's the reason why you actually end up doing like few kilometers, and the elevation is like gradually done, right? So that's why Kedarkantha base camp is important. So it's mostly like a very fun place, like day two, not
Hmm.
much of a difficulty. Again, you actually see all of these. You have like a combination of snow, and you have the tall beautiful trees, so that still happens. And there are a lot of like open areas as well as you go through it. Like
Hmm.
that's the meadow like kind of a feeling
Yep.
that I got. Then you have some little streams here and there, right? So that's the
Hmm.
kind of experience that you will get. So again, on
Okay.
day you reach Kedarkantha base camp. If you're doing like a winter trek, they will teach you how to walk with your spiked boots and everything. You have to have your spikes on. So
Okay.
you do have your trekking boots and everything, but then they will give you the spikes that you can sort of attach to it, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is the next day, which will be your summit day,
Hmm.
there will be like a lot of places where these spikes are needed, like for you to have like better control over it, right? So that you don't like slip and fall and those kind of things. So
Yeah.
once you reach Kedarkantha base camp, that's when you sort of try and practice a little bit with it, because especially for beginners, you really wouldn't know how to sort of deal with it, right? Like even putting it on, taking it off, and just how do you walk, right? They always say that, put your heel first and then the rest of your foot. So as simple as those things, right? So that you don't really hurt your ankle, don't pull your muscles. So those are the kind of things that happens like once you reach this base camp.
Okay.
And the rest of the time, you're just free to just hang around and do whatever that you want, because the views are like absolutely beautiful. So that's a given. And then again, you just fall asleep early on, because the next day you have to again walk for like long distances. And
Yeah.
especially the very next day, right after the Kedarkantha base camp, that's going to be the longest day, because you will trek around, I think, 9 to 10 kilometers that day. And then the trek actually starts somewhere in the middle of the night. Like it could be around like 12:30ish or 1, because the whole idea is to catch the sunrise at the summit. So
Yeah.
you will sort of begin around like 12 a.m. or 12:30. So you have like an early dinner and you just go to bed for a couple of hours. And then 12 a.m. or 12:30, everybody is ready, and you start the trek.
Okay. So yeah, definitely day 3 looks like it's going to be a busy day. So
Yes.
even from that perspective, it's good that day 2 was much more relaxed, and you also got some time to prep. And these are basically from a preparation perspective that you said, these are basically micro spikes that you just put onto your shoes for better grip, right?
Correct.
Surya, that's the one you're
Correct.
referring to.
That's the
Yeah.
one. That's one.
Yeah, again, given that as you ascend towards the peak, obviously elevation-wise and the incline as well will start to increase a little bit, plus a lot of snow. So it is necessary that you have some kind of additional support. So these almost like chains and spikes pulled onto your shoe. That's how it'll be. So you'll definitely need to just prepare that. And it's, again, one of the other benefits of traveling with a trekking group and a trek lead is that you get proper recommendation and advice as to how to use these things and when to use these things.
Yeah, and you have the trek leaders with you, right? I mean, usually a group is given like about 2 to 3 of them, right? Depending on
Yeah,
the size
yeah,
of the group that you are part of. And they are the ones who are there ensuring everybody's safety is taken care of, everybody is doing the right thing, making sure that we're all, going together, right? As simple as that, because obviously it's like a forest area and you don't want to get lost, right? So
yeah.
that's some of the things that they do take care of. But yeah, like I said, this was the day which was like very, very exhausting, right? Because long distances, you have to go to the summit and you have to come back as well, right? So you're doing like a lot of walking and carrying around, right? So it's going to be a little difficult, plus the temperatures as well. So, everything, like it's a combination of like multiple factors, I would say, that happens, right? And like I was saying, we started, I think, around like 12 a.m. So all of us had to wear, like, obviously the gear, the clothing gear. So yes, it was there. We had to like cover our face, nose. You had these micro spikes on. Then you have your headlights and the tiny one that, because we're obviously starting it in the middle of the night, right? And
Right.
they tell that, okay, there are some rules that you have to follow, like a line, and all of those things. So that started, and I think we did the walking, and I was telling you about this some shops that you get in between, right? So I think there was just one or at the max two that we got on the way to the summit. So again, if you're like feeling very tired in between, you can actually stop and have something somewhere so that you just feel a little energized. And usually you can carry, like, I mean, it is advisable that you carry a thermos with you, right? Because you can always carry like hot water and it will stay hot for some time, and it actually gives you like a lot of relief, right? Hot water as well. So yeah, you can do that. That's one of the things which I felt was like which was like very, very nice at that point in time, because the temperatures
Sure.
were like crazy. And even a little sip of water, like you always just sip a little bit of water, right? So
Yeah.
you can continue to do that. So I think for me, I think the initial first few kilometers were okay, and then you reach something called as the shoulder of a mountain, right, where you know that you just have to go on top, like there's no way back, because there's this huge line behind you, right? And just one person doing anything, then you have like so many people who will get that impact, right? So very similar thing happened for me. Like as soon as I reached that shoulder of this Kedarkantha, this summit that I had to do, right? There was just strong cold winds that were blowing, and it was just so slippery everywhere. I think one of the mistakes that I did, I mean, it's a good thing that I mean, you will see like what's around you and everything, but that also puts in a lot of fear inside you, right? Like one wrong step and you are lost in Kedarkantha forever. Like you can be there.
No
It's
pressure.
like that. Yeah, no pressure. Like you came on your own. So that's the most difficult part of it, I think, about these winter treks, right? Because if it's a summer trek, then you know that you can somehow sort of manage, because you're not dealing with a lot of other factors, right? But here, that's the thing, right? So you have to be like very, very careful. And I even remember telling one of the trek leaders saying that I want to go back. I quit. I don't think I want to see the summit. I've seen, a lot of beautiful things already in these 3 days. I literally don't, care about, submitting and everything. It's fine, right? So, and then I realized, and I see back this, like, where do I go, right? Even if I want to go back, there's literally no way to go back other than, just somehow, these people have to cross me and go, or I have to wait in some, little, tiny portion in that mountain. It's just crazy, right? And you have this strong cold winds blowing and everything. And I think I just felt like, what do I say? Like, deep gratitude for everything at that point in time, saying that I don't know why I put myself into this. Although people say this is an easy trek and everything, but me as a first timer, I think I was just so like nervous and scared that I just wanted to quit and go back. But finally, I think the trek leader sort of helped me. He said, okay, no problem, you come, we're all there, so don't worry and stuff. And he had to like sort of be with me for some time. It's more like a moral support thing that kuch nahi hoga, you're gonna be okay, kind of thing, right? So
डर के आगे जीत है, Surya. A little
yeah,
bit of
exactly. But at that moment, I
ups
didn't
for
feel
Mountain
that.
Dew.
Yeah, at that moment, I don't think I felt that. I was like, oh God, I just want to go back somehow. Just tell me the way, I will go back, right? So that sort of happened, right? And somehow I just managed to cross that area, and then it was a little comfortable. But again, I'm saying, like, my experience over here, I did take a lot of the trek leaders' help, right? There were a couple of them who had done like multiple treks before, so they were, relatively comfortable with a whole lot of things. But maybe for a beginner, I think there might be some help that is really required, right? So I did take a lot of help from, a lot of these trek leaders to sort of help me get from that kind of a place to, just thinking about, okay, I'm just hardly like few meters away or few kilometers away from the summit, and let me just go and do that, right? So that happened. Finally, I reached. I did summit Kedarkantha. So it was. I think it was one of the most beautiful sights because we reached exactly at sunrise. We could see the sun as well as the moon, like literally, like you can see sun as well as the moon. And then you also have the other peaks that you can also see from there, right? So that was also like just so wonderful to be able to see. I think it's actually Yamunotri and Gangotri peaks that once you reach summit, you can see the Yamunotri and Gangotri. And as soon as like you can see the sun rising, you can see that kind of a gleam on a snow-capped mountain, right? It's just a beautiful feeling that you can take in for couple of seconds, maybe couple of minutes max to max, because the day we reached the summit, the temperature was, I think, minus 18 degrees.
Oh, wow,
So
okay.
it's not a place where you can hang around for like a long time. You literally cannot take out your gloves or anything, right? You just feel that, okay,
Yeah.
let me just absorb this, stay in the moment, let me take it in. Photos don't really matter at that point in time, to be very honest. You'll be like, I at least I was like, "Main bach gaye." I'm just seeing all of this. I literally don't care if I have a photo or not. I don't care
Yeah.
if there is a video or not. Glad that I'm safe here, and I just want to go back safely, right? That's
Yeah.
one thing. And you're just so engrossed in that beauty, like, honestly, like, it's so beautiful that you will feel like nothing else like really matters, right? So that
Yeah.
couple of minutes, right, 2 to 3 minutes is what max you can be there. Like, minus 18 degrees is not something that you can take lightly.
Yeah.
So that's what you can do there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's also, like you're mentioning, a beautiful view, right? One of the USPs
Yeah.
of the Kedarkantha Trek is the ability to summit, right? Because in a lot
Yes.
of other treks, you're usually hitting the base camp, and obviously you're getting great views of other peaks and
Yeah.
everything, but
Yeah.
there's always that satisfactory feeling of actually reaching the summit and being at the top of the summit. Obviously, it's a catch-22 that you can't really stay there for too long. You have so many emotions running through you. There's always the difficulties and the fear that you go through when
Yeah.
you reach there. But once you are there, it's like seeing that sight, seeing the other beautiful peaks from there. Added to that, the sunrise. In your case, you're also seeing the moon at the same time. So all of that is great. But you also have the winds blowing, the temperature at minus 18. So you can't hang around, like you said, for a long time. Although you would like to, right? You'd like to be there for a long time. You can't really hang around. But I believe
Exactly.
the other peaks that you see from here, a lot of others, like you mentioned a couple of them, but Nanda Ghunti, Swargarohini, Kala Nag, and then
Correct.
Rupin Valley and Harki Dun Valley, like those valleys as well, you can see from there. So a marvelous view to, no matter if you take a picture or not, but I'm sure it's always etched in your memory, right? Especially for a first time
Absolutely.
trek, if you're seeing these views, it's just brilliant.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, once that is done, then again, you have to again come back to,
Yeah.
either your Kedarkantha base camp, or many people, head down towards Hargaon camp as well, right? So you have to again start descending
Yeah.
from there. So at least what we did was we went back to Kedarkantha base. We just had a lunch there, and then
Okay.
we headed back to like Hargaon camp, right? So again, you stay there for like a night, and then you start from whatever camp that you're in, you start descending towards Sankri again. So
Okay.
the path is usually different. The path that you come in, and to the path that you probably will start descending. So that can be totally different, right? So
Okay.
that's what really happens.
And just in terms of now the overall, is it day 4, right? When you make the descent back to
Correct,
Sankri?
correct. Yes.
And did you choose to stay at Sankri for the night and then head out the following day, or how was that,
So
Surya?
the way it happened for us, only one day we stayed in one of the base camps after the descent, right? So the very next day, then we descended to Shankri, and the same day we actually left to Dehradun. What people
Okay.
also do is they take 1 day break in Sankri, and then the next day, sort of day 6, if I consider from day one,
Right.
so day 6 is when most people leave from Sankri to Dehradun. But if everybody is comfortable doing it on day 5, you can actually come back to Sankri and start your journey towards Dehradun on the same day, right? But then you will reach sometime in the night, but you can actually stay back in Dehradun that night instead of being at Sankri. You will be paying for accommodation in Dehradun.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And also, I read that for those interested, obviously, Sankri is the most popular base camp or the popular route that Surya
Exactly.
took, but there's a couple of others as well. Kodgaon is another alternative route that you could take that starts off a different base camp, basically like almost starting from your from the western part of the mountain or from the eastern part of the mountain, that kind of a thing. And Gaichawan Gaon. I'm probably messing up the pronunciation, but that's another alternative route too. Obviously, if you're looking for a different experience, if you've reached that level of a trekker that you've done multiple treks and also done Sankri and you want to experience another route getting to Kedarkantha, this is another route you could try out. Fairly lesser taken in terms of other groups and trekkers taking the route. So maybe for that experience, you could try those out. But thanks so much, Surya. I think it was a brilliant experience. Also, it was icing on the cake in the sense that this was your first trek, and also a special trek in the sense it had the best of everything, right from the clearings to the forest to a beautiful alpine lake to even the summit, right? So that way it's all in one. So that way it's a great trek. It's not like those super difficult treks that you have to get through that a beginner probably cannot afford at that time, as well as it's not like a day hike, day trek type of a thing that's like too little to call it a mountain trekking experience, right? So that way I think it's a real and great trek. Any final thoughts from the trek or advice, Surya, that you'd like to share with listeners?
Yeah, so for me, it was like a gamut of emotions. Like I went from being like ecstatic to being so scared to being like, oh God, I just want to give up to, oh God, this is like the most beautiful thing ever. Like multiple times, this was like the most beautiful thing ever, you know? So I think I went through like the entire range of emotions. And I think this was like one of the best possible decisions that I took when it comes in terms of travel, right? Great experience. It was the very first time for me, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I thought that, yeah, I can sort of do treks as well and still enjoy it, because I wasn't sure like how I would sort of, end up feeling after that, like physically and everything, right? So this, I think, is like the best that, you can start off with. If you really want to enjoy like a nice good trek, then Kedarkantha Trek is the one. That's something that I would recommend based on whatever research that I did at that point in time. But yeah, it was like a beautiful experience for me, and I think if I get a chance to go to Kedarkantha again, I probably will, in spite of whatever else. So I still will, take my pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about the experience, right? I mean, even if
Totally.
you're doing it multiple times, it always feels like it's a different experience. So why not? And
Yes.
definitely for not just for the ascent and the descent and the ups and downs, but also, like you said, for the almost roller coaster of emotions that you go through as well. You can certainly do it for that. And if nothing, always remember, Dar ke aage jeet hai, right? I wish Mountain Dew was sponsoring this episode, but it is not. So we're giving free publicity to Mountain Dew. But thank you so much, Surya. I think brilliantly captured the whole experience. And definitely a great beginner's trek as well. I mean, don't take it too lightly. Like we said at the beginning, it's definitely not a walk in the park, but for a beginner, it can definitely be a great experience, a great winter trek experience that captures so many different things, and even this experience of summiting a mountain, right? And we are so glad and grateful that we could connect again, Surya, having you back on the podcast. And our apologies that we took so long to get back to you. So maybe the next time we won't wait for so long. We'll be back to Surya, asking her to come back on another episode very shortly. And in the meantime, definitely don't forget to check out Surya's podcast. Surya, do you want to give a quick shout out about your podcast, how listeners can find it, where to find it, and when you're expecting to be back with season 2?
Yeah, so it's called Travel Rope You Inspire Me, and you can find it on almost all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, you have it on Amazon Music, JioSaavn, Spotify. So do check it out and let me know how you all like it. So thank you so much, Seth. I mean, this has been such a delightful experience, and like I always tell, it's always nice talking to you and Faiza. What both of you are doing is just absolutely incredible. So I wish you loads and loads of success with everything that you guys do. Thank you so much again for inviting me.
Thank you, Surya. And as I was telling you before as well, Musafir Stories wouldn't be possible without people like you who trusted and gave us your time right at the beginning, back in the day when literally we were just starting out, right? So you inspire me, you inspire us. So thank you so much for coming back and sharing your experience with us again, Surya.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. Take care.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.